It was the 60s, a time of turbulence and cultural change, new music, a controversial war, the civil rights movement, the assassination of a president, the first men on the moon. In the midst of all this, a group of independent bankers recognized that their industry faced changes too. Changes that could alter how they did business and how consumers did their banking. The new organization, the Independent Bankers of Minnesota, was started to fight legislative battles and specifically oppose a Minnesota bill for branch banking. The organizers emphasized that the new group would speak only for independent banking, clearly honing the focus that would differentiate it from existing banking groups in the state, a focus that continues today. Branching remained the key issue throughout the 60s and into the 70s, but along the specific banking concerns, the new association weighed in on the economic questions affecting Minnesota. For example, members supported a state constitutional amendment designed to encourage taconite development on the Iron Range. The 70s brought a deep disillusionment with government, college campus demonstrations, Watergate, gasoline lines, and something called a floppy disk. The bankers continued their involvement in Minnesota's economic health, and when the Rural Development Act was passed in 1972, then Senator Hubert Humphrey told the bankers they were instrumental in its passage. The following year, the association's Bank Study Committee evaluated the feasibility of creating a correspondent bank by and for independent banks throughout the state, and in 1975, the Independent State Bank of Minnesota, now United Bankers Bank, opened. The 80s began with double-digit inflation. The prime rate was 21.5%. Hostile takeovers, leveraged buyouts, the roots of too big to fail, and mega mergers claimed the headlines. A former actor claimed the White House. In 1981, ICBM was instrumental in forming the Bank Holding Company Association to provide education and resources on the unique issues facing holding companies. In 1982, ICBM members came to the aid of the state government by making available a borrowing pool of several $100 million at below market interest rates to help the state through its revenue crisis. The proposal was coordinated through ICBM member banks and the Independent State Bank of Minnesota. A failing farm economy also marked the decade. Rural Minnesota was hurting. Several member banks offered low-interest loans for holiday spending, and customers were required to use loan proceeds to buy products locally. One bank offered loans for as little as 2.5%. The 90s did not open on a high note. At the 1990 annual convention, the state banking supervisor announced that Minnesota lost 29 banks in the 80s, and 30 remained on the watch list. The decade also brought the Gulf War, a president facing charges of perjury and obstruction of justice, and a basement garage bombing at the World Trade Center. But there was an undercurrent of positive change as well. The World Wide Web took off in 1992, and before the decade was over, technology would forever change the banking world. In 1994, the association launched Future Bank, a technology trade show developed by bankers for bankers. Changes were also afoot for the association. In 1993, it was renamed the Independent Community Bankers of Minnesota. Members began working for a reduction of regulatory burdens, key efforts that continue today. Community Bankers Service Corporation, now ICBM Services, was formed to enhance membership value and provide new revenue sources for the association. Partnering with associate members has continued to be a top consideration. The end of the decade meant extensive Y2K plans for the millennium change and responding to the effects of Graham-Leach-Bliley. The new millennium opened with the burst of the dot-com bubble, followed by the collapse of the World Trade Center towers, fires burning in the Pentagon, and the shocking images of airliners crashing into all three. Technology's march continued. Facebook was launched in 2004. Flash drives replaced floppy disks. The economy seemed to be tipping over. Oil skyrocketed to more than $145 a barrel in 2008, while home mortgage interest rates plummeted. ICBM and its members steered through the storms, fashioned with new services to meet new needs, launched programs like Team, Future Bankers, and Debate Minnesota, and reintroduced a technology trade show designed by bankers for bankers, calling it Tech Expo. The association also established the Family Held Bank Institute and created a new logo with the tagline, "Always with you, always for you." Education was expanded with courses designed for delivery via webinars and the internet. Member networks were formed to help members share best practices and solutions to common challenges. CBFS, an insurance agency specializing in coverage for community banks, added another key member benefit and a new source for revenue for the association. ICBM closely followed state legislation, successfully preventing some proposed bills from reaching the floor, as well as amending and authoring others. ICBM also strengthened its involvement with ICBA on federal legislation, serving as the National Association's grassroots partner. From its beginning in 1962 to today, ICBM has remained a member-dedicated organization focused on Minnesota's independent community banks. It was organized to defend community banking and continues those efforts, and now provides what bankers need to compete in a changing world. Its 50 chairmen have led hundreds of district directors, representing thousands of bankers across the state, to provide resources and advocacy needed to remain independent and competitive, to grow, and to positively impact their local communities. For 50 years, and for years to come, ICBM remains always with you and always for you. Minnesota's independent community bankers.